Hey guys, riding the bike this morning. Get that workout in. Hey. So I'm pretty sure that over the past few weeks, God has been asked the question, why me? With so many people losing their jobs, so many people losing pay, so many people losing their businesses, losing loved ones. I'm sure millions have asked the question, why me? I've done nothing wrong. I've never treated anyone bad. I've always been nice to everybody. Why me? Why not the evil ones? Why not somebody else? Why not those who treat everyone bad? Why me? Even for those who have lost their jobs, you probably asked, why me? I've been faithful on the job. I show up to work every day. I show up to work on time. And now here I am with no job. Why me? And so now you start to think that God doesn't like you, or that God is upset and angry at you. And sometimes even getting to the point to where you believe that God doesn't even exist because you went through a difficult moment in your life. Listen, you will go through situations. You will go through problems. You will face difficulties in your life. You will. You will. But I always say before we reach elevation, we sometimes have to go through devastation. It's all part of the plan. I remember in 2001, a tropical storm had destroyed Houston. Tropical Storm Alice, and some of you might remember. My parents lost the house that they were renting due to severe storm damage. And they had to move into a motel for a very long time. A long time. But after the devastation came elevation. After all those months living in a motel, they were able to have a new home built from ground up. All along, it was all a part of God's plan. And so here's what I want you to know today. You're not going through what you're going through because God doesn't like you. That's not true. He loves you. In fact, He loves you so much that He was willing to send His only Son, Jesus Christ, to die for you. God has everything already mapped out in your life. Your life story was already written before you were even born. And in your life story, He will allow some situations to arise in your life, not just because. There's always a reason why. Our only responsibility as a believer during our difficult moments, during those shaky chapters of life, our responsibility is to trust in God and believe that something good is going to come out of this. We must learn how to trust in the Lord with all our heart and do not lean on our own understanding. Trust God. I challenge you to trust God and believe that after the test comes your testimony. Trust God and believe that after your mess comes your message, a message that you can share with the entire world, telling everybody of how God stepped in and took control of your situation. I think about Lazarus. Lazarus, the brother of Mary and Martha. At the very first beginning of John chapter 11 and verse 3, we find out that Jesus loves Lazarus. He loves him so much. But guess what? Lazarus is still sick. Lazarus was a believer, but guess what? He's still sick. I'm trying to help you answer that question, why me? Just because you walk with the Lord doesn't mean that God won't allow situations to arise in your life. Lazarus is loved by Jesus, but he's still sick. But I love what verse 4 says. And here's your answer to why me. Verse 4 says, when Jesus heard the news, He said, this sickness will not end in death, but it's for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Whatever situation you're going through today, I believe that God will somehow get the glory out of it. When Jesus received the message of Lazarus being sick, Jesus didn't come right away. In fact, He didn't show up to Lazarus until a few days later. And this can kind of compare to prayer. When we face situations and struggles, We want God to show up immediately. Like we want him to show up ASAP. This is a whole nother sermon right here. We start having this, what I call vending machine mentality. At the push of a button, we expect to get what we want, when we want it. But when what we want it doesn't come, oh my gosh, oh boy. You see what people do when something that that they wanted from the vending machine, they put their money in and nothing falls down. They get upset. They start kicking the machine and shaking the machine and start cussing, using profanity, and start hitting the glass. And this is how we get when our prayers aren't answered. Immediately. This is how we get when our prayers aren't answered immediately. We get mad, we get angry. Then we start to think that God isn't listening, or we think that God doesn't like us. But the reality is that he's showing up at his timing so that he may get the glory out of it. When Jesus finally shows up to Lazarus, he had already been in the tomb 4 days. Martha sees Jesus and she says, man, look, Lord, if you had been here, if you'd have came when we first told you to come, my brother wouldn't have died. He'll still be here. But Jesus says, your brother will rise again. Long story short, let's fast forward. So they removed the stone from the tomb. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you. I thank you that you have heard me. He said, I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. Then suddenly Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. Lazarus came out, hands and feet wrapped with linen. Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. So whatever you're going through today, I want you to trust God. I want you to trust God and know that what you're going through is all part of his plan. I want you to believe that he's going to turn your situation around, all so that he may get the glory out of it.
Join Pastor Brandon each week as he shares a message of hope, a message that can keep you lifted during these difficult moments that we are all facing today. You can stay connected with Pastor Brandon by following him on Facebook or subscribing on YouTube. Until next time, remember that you can make it through any situation, you can survive any storm, and you can win any battle.